Main Performance PCs provides a complete solution to get your hardcore sim racing career going. On top of a wide variety of PCs to choose from, Main Performance PC is also the sole distributor for Obuto gaming cockpits in the United States. Coming soon, the MPPC pedal set. Whether it's PCs, gaming cockpits, a high-end pedal set, or other accessories, check them out at mainperformancepc.com. Welcome to Inside Sim Racing. I'm Darin Ganji here with
Jason Dunnington. And
today we have a quick release for the G27, Logitech G27, by
Simulaje?
He wasn't called Simulaje. I think it's Simulaje.
Simulaje?
That's what I want to call it. I'd like to thank a couple people. First, Pablo GoPro Lopez. He actually had this set up and has been telling me about it for months, for a long time, and he's been telling me, dude, my friend Juan Zapata wants to get you this quick release. And I'm like, well, send it to me. So,
right.
Juan, I'd like to thank you for sending us this quick release setup. So if you can see, it's here on here, and
backs of these little guys.
Well, why don't you tell them what that is?
All right. Well, yeah, this is the little SimRaceWay SRW-S1 rim. We picked it up on eBay for $40. It was a refurbished little unit.
Newegg.
Oh, Newegg. Yeah.
Actually, I found it on eBay, and it was linking to Newegg.
Oh.
So I went directly to Newegg and bought it direct, and actually got a free video card with it.
Oh, you can't beat that.
Cheap video card, but
cheap video, whatever.
Yeah.
It'll run another monitor for sure. But yeah, it also comes with it's fully adapted to that. So all you do is unscrew the old screws, screw this puppy back in, and she's ready to rock pretty much.
Well, kinda. There's a bit of installation to get that thing working, and we'll talk about that. Yeah. So this is Jason's wheel. Jason did all the installation. He's done most of the racing with this so far, so he's a lot more familiar with it than I am. So I'm just going to kind of host this show, and Jason's going to really tell you guys what this thing was all about. Now, price is, his website doesn't show the price, and I actually went to Virtual R and saw a post that he had done last year. Oh. So his price may have changed, but it sounds like the base, so like this right here, this piece and this piece is €90.
Right.
So I don't know, that's probably about $150 US plus shipping. So depending on where you live, it's going to cost you however much to ship it. And then I think those extra pieces are about €55, but I'm not sure. And he does not have prices at his website, which is, by the way, we'll put it on the screen here, Simulaje, or Simulaje as Jason calls it,
right.
.blogspot.com. Anyway, if you want one, it looks like you got to go to his website to order it, and or talk to him about it. Send him an email, and then there's a contact deal, and Juan will probably hook you up. He's got some other products too. So anyway, but we're going to talk about G27, how it installed, how it worked with mainly that rim. This honestly works exactly the same, except for it pushes the rim back further.
Yeah, about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. You got a little extra. For my rig, it actually worked better because I have long legs, and it just brought the wheel into a more comfortable place all around. So I thought that was awesome.
Worked great for me too. I mean, I have long legs as well, but I'm also a tad taller than you.
A tad.
It worked fine. It worked. I liked the placement. I didn't feel like the wheel was up in my chest. We got some footage of me driving here, but I liked the way it worked.
Yeah.
So let's talk installation. Now this installation went pretty smooth for you.
Yeah,
the base installation.
The base installation was super easy.
How much did it take to attach this to the rim?
Hardly anything. Once I pulled out pulled apart the wheel and dropped that out, it basically screwed. The plugs were already there, so you just plugged it in, and
so the plugs from the base rim were already there, and then the quick release has plugs to plug it into.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then now, what about this part?
That was really easy initially putting it on for the wheel. It was unscrewing it. Again, the plugs that are the G27 plugs.
The plugs that this went into.
Yeah. Yeah, they just did the female or the male, and then you connect them inside there and, slap it all together, and she's ready to rock, right? Within about an hour 40, if I was taking my time.
Yeah, I think it looked like it took you about an hour to do this part.
Yeah.
Then it came to that.
This little happy guy, yes. There's really there was two ways that we could have thrown this together. The Pro way, which I decided to go with, and basically.
And the Cheeseway.
The Cheeseway. Yeah.
Yeah, the Cheeseway is basically... Now, this rim comes with a long, 12-foot USB cord, which actually we have here.
We used it
and we'll get to that in a minute, but... So you could wrap it around if you want and just plug it in, because you need to plug it in...
To make anything work.
Yeah, exactly. Juan Zapata's got instruction videos at his site on how to put this all together. And they're in Spanish, not speaking, but some of the text's in Spanish, but he's pretty thorough about showing you what to do.
Yeah. And initially, really, I watched both those videos and put it together. Of course, I decided to go with the pro route, so I already had cut the wire and fitted it in there. There was another little 4-wire, probably weird USB connector sitting off to the side that I shoved in. And then when I plugged this into that, of course,
now, was it part of this?
It is part of the top piece, because this also has set screws that you can pull this little yoke out that has your wiring and stuff in it. So the collar is a different piece that sets into.
Okay. So he basically snipped the USB cable, attached it to this little 4-wire plastic plug, plugged it in, we booted it up, dead. Thing did not work. Nothing. So we're like, okay, something's wrong.
Yeah, it was like, next idea. So, and then it dawned on me, wait a second. I plugged in a USB thing, and I believe I remembered that there was those wires sitting there doing nothing, so.
And I had seen them doing this on a video.
Right.
Routing this USB cable through the base and out the back. Mm-hmm. So basically you had to go in, so you had to make sure that was attached.
Right.
To the plug. So you actually ended up eliminating the plugs that he sent, the plastic plugs, and just soldering them with some heat shrink.
Yeah, and a great idea with the plugs, he gave us extras because he knows how hard they are, because they were such a pain in the ass. I failed miserably the first one. I succeeded, and then as I was pulling the plug off after I tested, I ripped the damn wire out, and so that ruins the rest of the plug. You can't get one wire in when you already got the clip inside it. So yeah, cut it off, heat shrunk it, called it good, and now it's done, and I think much more solid.
Okay, so once you got everything soldered up, so if you have a soldering iron, or you're good at soldering, you're probably better off going that way because it's going to be a more solid connection.
More solid, and it's way less frustrating.
And that also eliminates you having to wrap the thing, and I just don't like doing that anyways. I mean, it still makes it a quick release, but then you have this long cable that you got to deal with every time you connect this.
Yeah, so you can't put your wheel away, it just has to be close to your computer.
You're going to have to wrap the cable, plug it into the USB, versus you could just have these two plugged in. So now you have 2 USBs, one for the G27 and one for the SimRaceWay wheel.
Right. Or any other wheel that you want to add that is USB compatible, because, well, you can see, and they show you in their videos that they're the 4 wires that they run through this little VGA plug.
So now let's talk about how these all interact. So now if you have this plugged in, it acts exactly like a G27.
Yeah.
The shift lights work, paddles, everything works as normal. Now, when you plug this in, needless to say, you have to have the second USB plugged in.
Right.
And everything seems to function.
Except these bottom 3 little knobs, which from what I've read, they're working on it. They haven't quite got it set yet. But I mean, you got, 20-some knobs and buttons.
Got lots of buttons.
And really cool stuff to play with.
The shift lights don't work unless there's a guy that made a program that allows those shift lights to work, but he's charging like €8 for it. And Jason and I both have, I gave him the Monster Dash, so he's got full shift lights.
Yeah.
He doesn't need that, so we didn't bother paying the €8 for that. And anyway.
Plus, and when is the last time you look at your wheel for your shift indicator?
Yeah, I know I don't.
I either hear it, or now I have a awesome dash that makes that happen. So.
Yep. So what this does give you also is your shift paddles are here, and then these are 2 progressive paddles, which this original wheel was just meant to just hold it in your hands and run with gas and brake here. These are progressive paddles. So what's kind of cool is I set it up just here to look left and look right in iRacing, and it lets you progressively look left and right if you want.
Real smooth too.
Yeah, you have track IR, I noticed too.
Yeah.
So you don't really need that, but
no.
So that's one thing. Now here's another thing that's kind of funky about this, having this rim hooked up in iRacing in particular.
Yeah.
First of all, make sure you check that the specific controls for this car. Because if you're going back and forth between these rims, this thing calibrates different than this. And what ends up happening is, you know, there's some kind of servo or
gyro type.
Gyro, that's the word I was looking for. There's some kind of gyro in here that basically is sensing when you're turning. And what ends up happening is you have that axis and these axes. iRacing gets a little confused. iRacing will actually not let you calibrate past 900 or past, we figured we did it at 420. And that's a funny number. Anyway.
But it worked.
But it worked, yeah. Jason was actually doing 360 at his house, but we tried 500 was too much, it seemed. 420 worked. Or actually, I tried 540. That was too much.
Right.
So somewhere between 420 and thinking maybe 500's max. We didn't check it out. But anyway.
With an F1 wheel, you really don't want anything more than that anyway, because you're only turning 90 degrees. So
set your Logitech profile to 420. Actually, I went to 422. Because then it winds up back to, if you go to 900 and try to calibrate with that rim, as soon as you get past 400, for some reason it starts reading iRacing starts reading the gyro in this wheel and starts to try to calibrate that. So you see a bunch of different axes popping up. And then check that little box at the bottom of the controller screen in iRacing to configure it per car. Because then when you switch back and forth, you won't have to reconfigure it for this thing. So anyway, that was a little hiccup, but again, like Jay said, in an open wheel car, which is what you're going to be using this for mainly, you're not going to need to go even past 360 degrees. So
yeah.
So another thing, this thing is small. This is a very small rim. If you compare it to the stock G27, it's probably about
pretty tiny.
3 inches. So if you line it up over here, I mean, you can see the difference. It is a small, especially for my hands are a little bit bigger than Jay's. I mean, man, my big old mitts are on this thing. It works great though. You know, I was running some of the Dallara and a little bit of the Daytona prototype and worked really good.
Yeah, the rim actually, you know, it feels nice and sturdy, and it has good embedding parts here on the thumbs, you know, where it feels nice in your hand.
And the grips are solid. The grips are really, that's a quality rim. Again, it's a little small, but what's cool about this whole setup is you can buy other quick release, or the coupler, I guess you could call it, and get other rims.
Right.
So
it just opens the door to G27. Now owners can actually look at some favorite rims that they were always, you know, you couldn't even touch before. There's no point. Now you can actually make it happen. So, which is really cool.
Anything else you want to say before we get to pros and cons?
The pro installation, you're definitely going to need some extra tools, not just a soldering gun. You need, if you can find those crimpers, I couldn't. I looked a little bit, but they're expensive. And for, you know, when I decided it's like I got a solder gun and solder, I'll do that instead, waste the money.
Another thing is you shaved this hole here. Now that was so that you could open up the case.
Right, because after you solder it, you can't just take this plug out and remove this coupler when you need to, if you need to work on this again. Or to even get this case back on, because you soldered all this together, you have to open that hole to allow that coupler to slide, you know.
So if you didn't solder it together and use the connectors, you'd just be able to unplug the connectors, unscrew this, and pull it off.
Yep.
What, you took like a Dremel or something?
Yeah, I just took a little Dremel tool and a barrel sander and just kind of ate just a little bit and double checked it a few times to make sure it went right through. I actually would recommend doing that, because the more you mess with the plugs too, if you make them with the plugs, the easier it's going to be to screw up and pop a wire off, and then you ruin the whole plug. So you're not going to get that wire back in.
So I think that's it. Let's get to pros and cons. First pro, you put easy to install. Are you sure about that?
First pro, the initial
this part
coupler,
is easy to install.
The couplers are super easy to install, and if you have other wheels or whatnot, I'm sure, like, he has them drilled right for the main thing. Super easy. That part, great. If you want to go the pro route, that's where it's not so easy.
So pro, I would say, is more, as far as difficulty, you better be good at doing stuff like this, or else you are going to get lost.
You definitely. It's just a little time consuming, and you really just got to make sure that you got the connections good. You know, all around, it's getting in it, you know.
So what's your next pro?
Next pro would be, it functions awesome, and it looks sweet. In the pro thing, it's nice because I can take this off and toss it off, throw the other wheel on. I love how it quick couples. It makes me feel kind of like
a race car driver?
Yeah, when I was getting into the Formula 2000 cars, you know, because you always pop the wheel on it. It was like, oh yeah, I remember that.
By the way, he drove Formula 2000 cars back quite a few years ago.
Yeah,
he said a few years ago, and I'm like, when? 2000? I'm like, dude, that's more than a few.
14.
That's a decade and a half.
You know.
But anyway, it does. It makes you feel like you're getting into a race car, so that is pretty cool. Okay, next couple pros. Opens the door for other wheel add-ons. You can, you know, again, get other couplers and get other rims and modify those. So that's another thing. And then the next one, it's easy to configure. You know, once you've got everything installed and you've got, you know, even with the SimRaceWay wheel plugged in, click whatever you want to configure in game, push the button and it works. You know, shift paddles, everything works. So basically this is acting almost like a button box.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, with a rim attached to it. But again, don't forget that, and I guess this is part of the cons, don't go past that 420 degrees of rotation or around there. You can mess with it and see what it is.
Yeah.
Next up.
Now, what could be a pro or a con for people, again, I mentioned that earlier, was the extending of the wheel out. For me, it was a pro. I love that extra little bit that I needed, really. I didn't realize I needed it until I have it. And then it was like, oh God, that feels much nicer, you know. But it could be a con if you have a, you know, a do-it-yourself build and you've already made it fixed, and that might be a little bit more of an issue.
All right, so let's go to the cons. I would say one of the cons is that if you're not mechanically inclined, I think I'm mechanically inclined enough to do this, and I am not a mechanic. Jason's definitely more savvy than I am, but I've done enough stuff, DIY stuff on my rigs and in my car, that I could handle this.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you installed a car stereo or something, you can take this on. It's pretty self-explanatory once you get in.
But if you haven't, you may not want to mess with this,
right.
Especially that setup with the extra USB. Just this setup, if you want to just add different rims. Now, as far as adding a different rim that's going to have buttons and paddles, yeah, that's going to be tough because you could honestly just add another rim that has no buttons.
And be perfectly set.
And be fine, yeah. Because then you got your buttons and stuff on the G27 shifter. But right. I'd say that could definitely be a con. Anyway, it's depends on which route you want to go. If you want to continue to upgrade your G27, I'd say it definitely adds some life and some coolness to it.
Right.
We're almost getting into final thoughts here. I don't think we're kind of past the pros and cons. This is your setup. Are you pretty stoked with it?
Final thoughts? I think it's awesome. I really was happy with the whole setup, how I got it. And you know, I don't care how old or new your G27 is, if you're gonna do any mod, start looking at any known issues you might see that they have possibly, and fix those while you're in it. Because how many times do you really want to get in the damn thing?
Well, and we weren't going to mention this, but we will. We also got a brass encoder, and we're going to do another separate little quickie review on that. While he was inside, he installed that brass encoder and noticed that the stock plastic encoders had some cracks in it.
Although mine was still working perfectly, but I was looking at other guys had some issues, you know. So, and that was a serious issue that caused it to be dead at times too.
Right. So, like Jason said, if you're going to open it up, you might want to look into some other mods. Here's the other thing with the G27. There are so many mods available for this setup, and mainly go look at the pedal setups. I mean, you got the perfect pedal, the Total Spanish Simulator hydraulic pedal. Except, I can't even think of the name of the load cell. There's a couple load cells out there. Even the Nixum and the GTI mods. So this base and setup can go a long way, and a lot of life in it by adding the different upgrades to it, and really makes it, you know, a more quality component.
And really, after I move on to a better base, I wouldn't mind actually throwing this on my wall, because it just looks freaking cool. Have a couple little wheels sitting on the side.
Well, actually, you can hang your wheels on the wall right now.
I can
you're not using one.
Exactly.
So that's pretty cool. So anyway, that's gonna wrap. Anything else before we go?
No, that's
gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, we can do.
All right, so that's gonna wrap it up. I'd like to thank Juan Zapata again and Pablo Lopez for putting this all together for us and getting this out to us. Actually, they sent us some other stuff for the G27 pedals, and I can't think of what they are off the top of my head. But
yeah.
We'll get to those later. But we wanted to just focus on this. Again, €90, I think. Just go to the website that we told you. We'll put up the website address here again. We'll put it in our description here too, so you can just click on it. Go check it out. Tell them we sent you. Hopefully you've enjoyed this review. For Jason Dunnington, I'm Darin Ganji. We'll see you guys next time.